Hi again, hello. So we're starting with a slightly new topic. We're looking at multiplication equations in algebra. Multiplication equations, right? Here we go. So one thing you'll notice is that we don't see the multiplication symbol much in multiplication equations because this looks a little bit too much like an x. And sometimes you're solving for x, so that would be very confusing. Instead, books will either have nothing at all there. So if there is no operation between the 5 and the a, for example, that means 5 times a. Okay? If some books might have a little dot between the number and the letter, and that also would mean multiplication, right? So either nothing or a dot means multiplication. Okay, so in this case we had nothing, but this is still 5 times a equals negative 25. Okay, and we're looking to get a by itself, just like before, we're looking to isolate a. Okay, so again, I look at this like a balanced scale, and we're thinking that if we're going to get a by itself, we have to get rid of the 5. Well, right now, what is that 5 doing to the a? We have to undo whatever that 5 is doing. So right now it's 5 times a, right? 5 multiplied by a. So in order to get that a by itself, we have to do the inverse of multiplication. The inverse of multiplication is division. So one way to show that is with a division symbol. We'll divide this side by 5, and we'll also divide this side by 5 as well. We're going to divide both sides by 5, again, to keep that scale balanced, right? We cancel where we can, so 5 divided by 5 is 1. 1 times a is a, so we don't need to worry about that anymore. And then a negative 25 divided by a positive 5. A negative divided by a positive, we remember, is a negative, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. So I've got a equals negative 5. Okay, there you go. We'll do another example over here. This time I have, this question. And I did this on purpose. Some books might write your decimals this way. So 0.45 equals 0.15. I say that out loud because maybe you can't see that tiny little dot there. I would think that the best way to do that would be to put a 0 in front of it so that you can see that decimal more clearly. But in any case, that's what that decimal is. That dot is a decimal. So 0.45 equals 0.15 times z. We want to get the z by itself. So to get the z by itself here, we needed to get rid of that 0.15 this time, right? Here that 0.15 is multiplied by z. So to get rid of it, we have to do the inverse of multiplying, which is dividing. We'll divide both sides by that 0.15. Now, you could do it like this, divide by 0.15 and divide by 0.15, but I find expressing it like a fraction or a ratio to be a little bit easier for me, right? If I put a 0.15 down here and a 0.15 down there, just remembering that that line means division, right? Like a fraction would. So now when I write it like that, it's much easier for me to cancel, right? Cancel where I can. Bloink, bloink, bloink. And then I'll rewrite again. But you can see maybe that the rewriting part isn't nearly as important now because you can quite clearly see the answer, the question over there. 0.45 divided by 0.15, a positive divided by a positive is a positive, and 0.45 divided by 0.15 is 3. Okay, so that's an example of a multiplication equation. So these are the classic multiplication equations, right? 5a equals negative 25, decimal 0.45 equals 0.15z. These are the classic ones. This fellow over here can be considered a multiplication equation because really you're taking 1/4 and you're multiplying it by t, right? 1/4 times t equals negative 3. So there are two ways of doing this question. Method number 1 is to treat it like a multiplication equation. So if I did that, if I treat it like a multiplication equation, and I want to get t by itself, well, I have 1/4 times t. So to get rid of that 1/4 times, I'm going to do the inverse. I will divide by 1/4. Cancel where I can, and you can see that I end up with t is equal to this stuff over here. Just to save myself a bit of time, and you may want to do this as well, if you show the division of both sides this way, I don't think you need to recopy it because it's very clearly here what you have to do. -3 divided by 1/4. Now, nobody likes to do this because this is dividing fractions. So when you divide fractions, you have to take -3 over 1 to turn it into a fraction. And you may remember when you're dividing fractions, you're going to flip the second guy and multiply. So it's -3 over 1 times, flip the second guy, 4 over 1. And that's multiplying now. Top times top, bottom times bottom. -12 over 1 or -12. Okay, so that's one method to do it. If you don't mind dividing fractions, go for it. The answer there would be -12. But there is another way of doing the same question. So I want to show you that as well. And it may be easier for you because I think nobody really likes to divide fractions. Maybe 1 or 2 people do, but not many. So if we look at C one more time, and we have 1/4 t equals -3. So another way of doing this is to take care of that multiplication first. So I got 1/4 times t. Well, 1/4 times t, right? This t could be expressed as t over 1, right? A whole, you can express anything over 1, so that's t over 1. Now when you multiply top times top and bottom times bottom, 1 times t is t. And 4 times 1 is 4. So you can see that that kind of multiplication question really became a sort of division question, right? This is t divided by 4 equals -3. Okay? Now, if I want to isolate t now, if I want to get t by itself, right? This is t divided by 4. So how do I get rid of a divided by 4? Do the inverse of dividing, right? The opposite of dividing, the inverse of dividing is to multiply. So I have to multiply this side by 4 to get rid of that divided by 4. If I multiply this side by 4, I also have to multiply that side by 4 as well. Okay? These guys cancel where you can. And t is equal to -3 times 4. Negative times a positive is a negative, and 3 times 4, of course, is 12. Okay? So these are 3 examples. 2 of them are fairly straightforward multiplication equations. This third example is in fact a multiplication equation by definition, but it can be converted into a division question, and you can decide, right, whether you want to divide by a fraction on both sides, or just multiply both sides by the denominator there, right, to get rid of the division. They both get the same answer, -12. Okay, more than one way to skin a cat. So I'll end the video here. You'll see more of me in our next video, which is going to be dividing equations, okay? Thank you very much. Take care. Bye for now.